Welcome to the Women Writing Podcast. I'm your book coach, Liisa Kovala. I'm an author, accelerator, certified fiction and memoir book coach, and the author of Sisters Winter War, Surviving Stutthof, and the upcoming Like Water for Weary Souls. And as a Finnish Canadian, I love my coffee. Take a coffee break with us as we chat about all things writerly with authors and publishing industry professionals. Today, I'm having my coffee break with Nicole Bross. She's a certified fiction book coach and editor, and the author of both adult and YA genre-blending speculative fiction. Her debut novel, Past Presence, an adult supernatural mystery, was a top 3 finalist for the Arthur Ellis Award for Best Crime Novel, awarded by the Crime Writers of Canada. She is currently working on 2 dark supernatural YA books and co-writing a nonfiction book for neurodiverse writers called A Novel Approach: Strategies for ADHD Writers. Nicole has been the editor-in-chief of Birthing Magazine since 2015, and her writing has been featured in many print and online publications, as well as nationally broadcast nonfiction TV shows. You can learn more about Nicole's writing at nicolebross.com. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Good. How are you this morning?
I'm so good. You're over there in Calgary. So we're just talking about the time difference. So are we 2 hours difference between
2 hours. I think
Ontario?
so.
Something
Yeah.
like that, 9 and 11.
Yeah.
And we're getting fall over here. How's it over there in Calgary?
The leaves are just starting to fall off of, I have a big poplar,
Okay.
basically directly above me. And so they're just like slowly. Yeah.
So it's happening. Summer's
I
nearly
know.
over. By the
I
time
don't
this
like it.
airs, it's going to be like full on fall, moving
Yeah.
into winter. So, oh, well,
Yeah.
it's all good. So it's great to see you. I'm so glad you could come on the podcast. We've known each other at a distance for quite a while through Author Accelerator and through the Canadian Book Coaches, which we're both members of. So we
Yes.
see each other kind of semi-regularly over Zoom, but not yet in person. But it was still
Yeah.
nice to see you here.
Yeah. Someday. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, good. I'm so glad. So I wanted to ask you all kinds of things because you're a book coach, and you're a writer, and you have a new book coming out, and I have so many, I have so many questions. But can we just go right to sort of to the beginning and like, were you writing when you were a kid? Were you somebody who started writing later in life? What did that look like for you?
I've always been a writer. Yeah, I started writing when I was really young, in those I don't know if you had them like the notebooks that had, half the page blank and then half the page for writing. And I would
Yes,
write like novels in those,
yes.
notebook after notebook, and sometimes like read them to my class, which was really cool. I
Amazing.
self-published a little family newspaper when I was like 8 or 9 or 10 and made, hand wrote 5 copies and sold them to the neighbors for 25
Oh, I love
cents.
that. I
Like,
love that you sold them. That's so good. I love
uh,
that. So
Yeah,
great.
and then I did, journalism in high school. I was the editor of my high school newspaper and in college as well. So yeah, like writing and editing has always been my life.
Yeah, just part of what you do and what you've done all
Yeah.
these years.
Yeah.
And you wrote and published your first book. I'm going to say it was pre-pandemic, 2019. Is that right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So it's called Past Presence. I guess I would call it a supernatural mystery. It's set in a fictitious town that I made up in on the Oregon coast. And it's about a woman who, when she touches other people, like skin to skin, she can see their past lives. And so she ends up moving to this small town and uses that ability to figure out like a series of murders that are happening in the town because in the book, people meet each other again and again over multiple lifetimes. So the traits that they had, 3 lifetimes ago would still come forth in this current life. And so she kind of finds all these clues to figure out who's who's committing these crimes.
So sort of a mystery, but also paranormal
Yeah,
in some sense. I love
yeah.
that so much. Um, I love the idea that, and I don't know if you subscribe to it or But I love the idea that we come back, but we come back in different ways, but with sort of
Mhm.
the same group of people, but in different configurations. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's so cool that because it does seem sometimes like you're drawn to a particular person and you don't know why, or you've met them, and you feel like you've known them forever. Like, where, like I always think, where does that come from? And I
Yeah.
wonder if it has something to do with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I part of that book was kind of interrogating my own feelings about life and death and, the cycle and everything. And so, yeah, it was kind of me processing
Mhm.
those thoughts and those ideas because, yeah, I like to believe something like that as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you find in your own writing that you keep coming back to certain ideas or themes that you're exploring or want to explore when you come up with a new idea for a story or
I think the common idea with all of my writing is that I am trying to process a big idea. And it's all kinds of different things like, death and dying and the afterlife, issues around the pandemic and like class differences and stuff like that. So it's often me trying to figure out how I feel
right?
about a big topic like that, and then using writing as a way of kind of working through those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, that's so incredible. And I think a lot of us do that because it's a way to sort through your own your own mind and where you sit on topics, and yet you don't have to necessarily uh show the reader what it is you personally feel because you can explore it through all these diverse characters, so it makes it so
Exactly.
fun.
Yeah, like the book that I'm working on right now, it's a YA kind of horror adjacent speculative fiction. And it's about my feelings about the patriarchy. Ultimately, like
Okay,
that's
yes.
that's the theme. It's coming through with, murder and biohacking, but
Yeah,
ultimately that's what I'm kind of working my way through is my absolute rage
yeah,
at the patriarchy.
yeah. Do you think you start with that idea first? Like, do you start with that, oh, I want to explore this, or does that kind of emerge as you're writing and discovering what the story is? Do you discover your theme, or do you kind of go, I'm going to write a book about such and such, and now I'm going to figure out what the story is around that?
Oh no, the story comes first.
Okay.
But the story tends to come to mind because that's kind of what's going on in my head at the
Yeah.
time. So I'm using that issue to create the story, but it's always that inciting idea that comes first.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
Stephen King who said, like ask yourself, what if? Like, what if this were to happen and what if that were to
Mhm.
happen? Which is also a
Yeah.
really interesting way of thinking about how to sort of enter into a story. But I also love the idea of taking just something you're rage filled about. You're like, I need to talk about this. I need to write about this. I need to explore this and
Yeah.
just get it down. Like just
Yeah.
whether it's to process it or to I don't know, maybe even send something out into the world about your feelings about it. It's
Yeah, and I ultimately I think I'll take an issue like that and my thought process is like, well, what if this, but let's make it spooky because
yes.
all of my writing is speculative in some way, and so it's like,
Yeah.
how can we make this weird?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
what do you, just going back to your younger writer self, were you then also writing sort of like in that genre, paranormal or ghosts or spooky, or did you kind of write all kinds of different things?
Not at the beginning, actually. Like I wrote more mysteries and stuff like that because that's what I was reading a lot of. Like I read the whole, Nancy Drew series and all of those classics, and stuff like that. And so I didn't really start reading any fantasy in earnest until I would say like junior high, grade
Okay.
7 to 9, kind of in that age range. And that's when my mind was like, whoa, we can
Yeah.
do anything.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of where my thoughts shifted. But no, in the beginning, it was more like me, self-inserting into like these classic mystery series and
Yes.
making myself the main
Of
character.
course, right?
Yeah.
Right. Or I would do the same with drawings of characters, and then I'd write my little story below them, but they were always like a reference to something I was reading or watching on TV, right? Some
Yeah.
female character who's sort of and often historical. I write historical fiction. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, it's just interesting how everything kind of comes together to, spark your imagination and then it sort of evolves. I have to ask this. Are you a fan of like watching films and movies in that genre, or are you more a reader?
I'm definitely more of a reader. I find that reading captures my imagination a lot more than TV or movies because I'm one of those very visual thinkers. So I see the picture in my head, and I understand that some people don't see the picture in their head at
Yeah,
all, and I don't know how their brains work.
I know.
And one of my kids is actually a phenomenal artist, and can do, amazing illustrations and stuff, and has no internal image, no
Yeah,
internal pictures. So
that's
it's like,
amazing.
how do you draw it?
Yeah,
But TV and movies don't allow me to create the image because they're giving it to me. So
right.
I don't watch very much. I'm a giant baby when it comes to horror. I love to read
Yes,
it. It's one of my favorite genres and I love to write it too, but I cannot watch it.
yes,
I get, the jump scares and everything. Like I'm a
yes,
very like a highly sensitive person. So any
yes,
jump scare, I'm like literally jumping and screaming. And
yes.
it's not for
Same.
me.
Same.
Yeah.
I have occasionally will watch something and generally it's earlier in the day and the lights like it's not dark out and I just have to like set up this environment where it's like really relaxed because I can't like I just it just freaks me out and but I'm the same with books like I there's something about maybe being able to pace yourself or and you're visualizing it the way you want to visualize it. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit safer and yet it can be equally scary. It's just in a different way, I suppose. I don't know. Not sure.
Yeah. And I think maybe like if we're creating the images in our minds, then we're in control of them. We can decide
Yeah.
how gory or, gross we want them to
Yes.
look or how, scary the monster is or whatever. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
with a movie, you don't get to control that. They're
Yeah.
giving it to you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think even with I was reading I haven't been reading horror since I was quite yet. Like I read a lot when I was a teenager too. Like that was kind of the thing.
Mhm.
And lately not as much, but I read something for a book club and I didn't find it particularly really scary. It was creepy for sure. Not
Mhm.
particularly really scary, but there were parts where I think it was intended to be very scary, but I couldn't allow my brain to go there. So I'm like, I kind of laughed at it a bit, but I think it was just to soften my my own
Yeah.
reaction rather than like the actual writing was good and it was very disturbing, but I just couldn't go there. So I'm like, oh yeah, that would never happen, and just kind of
Yeah.
downplay
Yeah.
it. Harder to do with a film. It's right in front of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That was fascinating. I had a conversation about this with somebody else about those folks who cannot visualize what we're writing as writers. Like it's so that's really eye-opening because I didn't know that until like maybe the last year or two I've heard about that. And so I think all the information about brain research and how it affects how we read and understand things or how we can see them, like that has consequences for how we write too. So I don't even know where that will land because we're trying to reach readers and we want them to be able to visualize what we're describing. But yeah, I think that's so fascinating. Is it your son who can't visualize those things and is the
Uh, my
artist?
old my older non-binary kid.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's so fascinating to me that they can draw like
Yeah.
images and yet there's so much to know, so much to learn about this.
Especially with illustration, because drawing, it's a picture, like where, I don't know, with words I can kind of understand it. And I
Right.
think, oh, I don't know who it is off the top of my head. I want to say it's John Green, who in the past has posted that image of like the different heads with different pictures of apples in it. And it's like very explicitly an apple and then kind of slowly fades into less descriptive until there's nothing at all.
Yeah.
And he said, like, I'm the nothing at all when I write. You can't see the
Really.
picture. Then I'm at the very opposite end of the spectrum. Like the apple is
Yeah.
so,
You can
vivid.
see
And
it, smell it, taste it.
yeah. And so that's how I write because I can do that in my head. All I have to
Yes.
do is describe what I see in my brain.
Yeah.
So
I think
it's got to
that's
be a lot harder.
100%. But also I mean, I guess we all individually have our own way we see the world, and that's what we know. So we don't know anything different. So that's why I think it's really interesting, like like the folks that you book coach, because they're coming at their manuscripts from all different perspectives with all kinds of so your book coaching is called Manuscript Alchemy, which I love that name. First of all, like it just resonates with the kind of writing you do, that kind of fantasy, and like, but also the magic of bringing together words and ideas and individuals to help each other. I love that whole whole concept. But like, so when you're so what kind of folks do you serve when you're book coaching?
Fiction for sure.
Yeah.
Generally in the older age range, like YA and up. I'm like I love all genres. I read really widely, so I don't really narrow myself in that respect. I specialize, I guess, in working with neurodiverse people, although I'm extremely happy to work with any type of brain, and nobody ever has to tell me, what type of brain they
Yeah.
have in order for us to work together. But a lot of my tools and strategies are built with neurodiverse people in mind, because it can present some extra challenges when it comes to
Yeah.
writing, particularly ADHD, with issues with organization and focus and stuff like that. So a lot of what I work on is like writing process, setting up kind of a sustainable writing system so that you can do it consistently, regularly, and feel like you're, productive moving forward instead of stuck or, always starting one project and then abandoning it, jumping to something else, never getting anything
Yeah.
finished. So yeah.
I think that's so important. And I know, like, for the folks that I know who are sort of in my circle, who are now entering another stage in their life, a lot of women especially didn't know and were never diagnosed as ADHD, for instance, and only now may sometimes when their own children have been diagnosed, and the like the light bulb goes off. It's like, oh, actually, that explains so much about my childhood or my life, and and they're just coming to understand that at a later time in their life, and that there's somebody, that can support them in terms of identifying the processes that are going to work, that could work for them, right? Because there's, and I, as a like, I used to teach English, but I also taught special education, and a lot of my students like would benefit. My non-IEP students benefited from the same strategies. It's
Mhm.
just that those strategies really worked for the IEP kids with IEPs, but
Yeah.
the like actually anyone benefits. So like,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing. But yeah, it's so fascinating to me. Do you have any strategies that you think you can share with us? I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but like, is there something that you think works for yourself or for other people, that listeners can maybe give a try? Because I know we all struggle with that, getting pages done and
Yeah.
getting time and time management, organization. Like, we're all busy and there's all
Mhm.
kinds of other things happening in our lives, and we all have this desire to write a book, but then
But
how do we get
then
down and sit down and do it?
well, and that's exactly kind of the thing that came to mind was overwhelm. We look at this idea of, writing a book and it's like, holy smokes, writing 100,000 words or 90,000 words, like how does anyone do that? And I think a lot of people, whether they're, neurodiverse or not, their brains just shut down and they're like, that's too big. It's too much work.
Yeah.
And so what I try and do with people is to break it down into really small, manageable chunks.
Nice.
So, then you're not writing a story, you're just writing a scene, or
Yeah.
you're just writing, even something as small as a paragraph. A lot of people, if they have difficulty getting started working on a project,
Mm.
whether that's the project as a whole or just the part that they want to do that day, to just break it down into something really small and manageable. So don't say, I have to write 1,000 words or I have to
Yeah.
write for 2 hours, say, I'm going to write 100 words, like make it so small and achievable.
Yeah.
And what most people find is that once they can get started, they can keep moving.
Yeah.
And so I like to suggest to people not to reward themselves for finishing something like writing 1,000 words or writing a chapter. Reward yourself for starting. And
Oh, I like
then
that. Yeah.
it keeps you going forward. So it does have to be a reward that's like small and tangible. So you can have it immediately,
Right.
like I like to say a nice square of dark chocolate, for
Yeah.
example. If you're sitting down at your desk and your laptop is open and your fingers are on the keyboard, you get to eat that chocolate. Now you start writing.
So good. That would be definitely incentive for me. And that
Hmm.
is, I think, for me, the hardest part is this sitting down to it. Like the act, I know once I'm sitting, I can write. I know
Hmm.
I will probably write longer than I expect, like even plan to. Like often it just goes. And I always feel really good after. It's like exercise, right? Like it's the starting it, it's the showing up. It's
Hmm.
like Mel Robbins says, like, or I forget who it is, maybe Adrian says, like just showing up on the mat is the most important step. After that, like it just takes care of itself. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a great focus. It's just getting started and reward yourself then. That's
Yeah.
great. Do you tend to use any trackers for your writing or for your clients?
Oh my goodness, do I ever? Um, I know it's not for everyone, but I find it really motivating to see, that word count steadily increasing and not just, looking at it at the bottom of my word processing, but, taking a moment to fill it in myself and seeing. I do have a spreadsheet that I use that will automatically update the amount that I write every day. So if I put the total word count in, it will subtract from the previous entry and then tell me like,
Amazing.
oh, you wrote, 1100 words or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So I find that really motivating. I do have a tool that I give my clients, and actually anybody can just download it from my website. But it's to build a daily writing habit. So it's a word count tracker, and it is a spreadsheet. But it's a pretty spreadsheet.
Yes.
And if you write your set word goal, whatever you've set it to be, I have it defaulted to 300 words again to be
Mhm.
really accessible. Then the
Yeah.
little square turns green. So it's like getting a thumbs up.
Yes.
So it's positive reinforcement. If you don't do it, then it turns red. So, it's the idea is to get you writing every single day
Yeah.
for people who think that that is something that they need
Right.
in their life. Not everybody can or should be writing every day. I'm not an everyday writer.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
neither am I, but I would love to be. And
yeah,
a tracker is so, I mean, I have trackers for all the things, right? I think I have step trackers and this tracker and that tracker. So having one for writing, if that's what works for you and your brain, I think that's amazing. And the fact
yeah,
that the word count is like so accessible, it will make you feel like, okay, I'm getting there. I'm achieving something. I don't know who
yeah.
said also, well, I know Gail Anderson Dargot's told me this. I don't know if she said this herself, like, or if she was quoting somebody else, but just if you write one page a day, at the end of the year, you'll have a book. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah,
Like a page is 250 words, maybe 300. Like
yeah.
it's doable. It's just hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of our colleagues, actually, Kim, she uses Lego to track her writing. So instead of a spreadsheet, she puts a new brick on her little building that she's building every time. I think she writes 500 words. And I love that idea
Yeah.
because it's visual. She's got it sitting on her desk.
Mhm.
And
I think
it,
that's
yeah,
great.
I
Yes,
think
I've
that's a great.
seen that. And I saw one day she had
Mhm.
bought extra Lego because she had good plans and intentions to write more. And I think she had just had buckled down a little bit more on writing her
Yeah.
work in progress. And I think that's great because you see it and you see it kind of building up. That's like
Mhm.
anything that can keep you motivated. Like in a way, I guess there are tricks or there like incentives or but whatever works, right? Whatever gets you to the work, and
Yeah.
then the work will happen. It's just getting there.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So what are you working on these days? Are you working on a new novel then?
I am. Yeah. I've finished a YA horror novel, excuse me, and I'm pitching that right now. So I'm hoping to find a home for that. And then I'm writing kind of like a speculative near future YA as well. My kind of focus or interest has really shifted to YA these days.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
for sure. I mean, and like those genres with YA readers is really hot. Like when I was teaching high school students, that those are the genres that my students ask for all the time. So those are the things I brought into the classroom because
yeah,
I wanted gray bookshelves of books that they would eat up.
Hmm.
And when they have books they love, they will read a ton versus, me saying you need to read this classic or that. They're not maybe not ready for that. Some of them are, but
Yeah.
more current and really interest-based stuff is, and they're topical and they're teenagers either, right?
No, I read a ton of YA myself. Like there's still good stories, the fact
Yeah,
that it features 17-year-olds is kind of irrelevant
yeah,
because it's the same, personal issues and all
yeah.
of that. So,
What would you say, like, for those folks who may not understand the difference between the different genres, so or I guess categories, like what distinguishes YA from adult fiction or maybe middle grade? Or now there's
and
new adult, isn't there? Like there's a new category. I should say new. It's
it's
probably been around a long time, but
yeah. So mainly it's the age of the characters, but you can write a book for adults, featuring a 12-year-old protagonist. It's not necessarily just that. It's more, reading difficulty has something to do with it. A middle grade novel is obviously going to be written with younger readers and their reading abilities in mind. But a lot of it I find too is kind of the issues that they encounter and kind of how the book is written. I'm trying to word it kind of intelligently. um, like a book for a YA reader is going to have teenage problems and teenage perspectives, and seen through that lens
Right.
versus just necessarily it features a character of
Yeah.
that age. So it's them addressing the issues, with that viewpoint
Yeah.
in mind.
I'd agree with that. And to add
Mhm.
to that, they're they have agency over their issues and their decision making.
Yeah.
Whereas, some other book, it might be more the adult figure who's intervening. No one's coming in to save them. They have to do it
Mhm.
themselves and grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really is accurate. Um, so can we talk about your new book that's coming out in October? Because I'm extremely excited about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us what it's called and tell us what it's about.
So it's nonfiction. It's my first foray into nonfiction. It's called A Novel Approach: Strategies for ADHD Writers. And it's not a writing craft book because it doesn't teach you how to be a better writer. But it's a writing process book. So it again goes back to finding that sustainable, long-term, focused ability to write and finish the book. It's not just about writing, it's about finishing, getting to
Yeah,
the end. Because a lot of people with ADHD do find they jump from project to project. They get distracted by the shiny new idea and, they just want to do that. So then they abandon their old book and they've got all of these books on their hard drives that are, 30,000 words long.
yes.
So yeah,
This is
that's kind of
sounding really
the
familiar right
premise.
now. So many projects and then you just kind of go, oh, look at that idea, let's go over there, this looks fun, and then
Yeah.
you move on to the next thing and the other one's still in the back of your mind. It's hard to move anything forward. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. And you had a co-author for
Mhm.
this book and you worked
Yes.
together. It's coming out in October. What kind of things can we learn from your book? Can you share any of your give us a little sneak peek?
Yeah, absolutely. It focuses on kind of the main issues that people with ADHD tend to encounter. So focus is a big one. Organization is a big one. That again, like writing consistently, so staying you know, locked in or motivated on your current project. One of the big things that we advocate for is an outline, and quite a robust outline I find is more helpful regardless of the type of writing you're doing,
Right.
because it again helps you to break down that project into chunks, but it also gives you an endpoint that you're working toward. So if you know how the book ends, and especially if you're excited about how the book ends, then you're more likely to want to get there,
Yeah.
and keep doing those small incremental bits until you finish.
Hmm. Would you say that when you wrote your first book, did you work through that process where you like, I know how it's going to end, and then you work towards that, or did you learn that, oh, that's a better way to do it as you went along?
No, I can't write without an outline. I need to know what the endpoint is. I'm a lot more, I guess, meticulous about writing and organizing my outlines than I have been in the past.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've kind of grown with. But even in my earlier writing, the books that I wrote before the book that I had published, because everyone has a few of those,
Of course.
um, I would have a bullet point document with all the things that I knew about what happened in the story and kind of follow along that. And it doesn't mean that, I'm not changing it and
Mhm.
adding things as I go as more ideas come to mind or realize, this thing that I thought was going to work out here actually makes absolutely no sense. So
Yeah.
take that out. But it's still, it gives you those waypoints. And then for me, especially knowing how it ends and knowing that that's the finish line
Yes.
is
Yeah.
really important. And I know a lot of people just sit down and write, and the story comes to them as they're working through it. And I respect that so much. And I also do not understand it at all.
Right.
Yeah, because I will take months sometimes crafting an outline and making sure that it has everything that I need from like a mental standpoint to be able to feel comfortable
Yeah.
getting started.
Yeah. And I've heard the argument that folks say it takes away the creativity if you have an outline, but I think the creativity is happening as you're creating the outline. Like
Yeah,
it's still the same creative process of trying to figure out what's next and how it's going to connect and what the story
yeah,
is and who these characters are. And it's just that you're organizing it into a different format until before you draft it.
yeah.
And my experience has been uh, having tried all the things, I've tried pantsing and plotting and all the things. I am now
Mhm,
firmly a plotter because I
mhm.
see how much time it saves me in the end.
Yeah.
Because when you do that first draft and you don't really know where
Mhm.
you're headed, by the end, yeah, sure, you know what your story is, but you realize you have to go back and change everything or restructure
Everything.
everything, and the story is not what you thought it was. Whereas when you
Yeah.
outline, you really have a good sense of who these people are and what's going on and what the character arcs are. So for me too, I find that really comforting. And just to sit down to write and know I know what's going to happen next. And I
Yeah.
don't actually have to write that scene next. I can write a different scene, but I know that scene's going to end up in the story when I put it together later. Like it's
Yeah.
really comforting. I don't feel like I'm sitting down like, oh, what I'm going to write today. Like I know what I have to write today.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
do
You
it,
don't have
but
to you don't have to do that mental energy of figuring it out before you
yeah,
even
yeah,
start the work. And I do like my outlines, I almost call them zero drafts because they can be 10 or 12,000 words long. Like it's not just a couple pages of notes.
yeah,
They're massive. So it is almost like pre-writing the book
yeah.
before I write the book.
Yeah. Well, and the whole concept of a zero draft is one that had eluded me until
Mhm.
really recently. And I think I've mentioned this before, but one of my clients is writing a zero draft. And she was a former book coach, actually author accelerator book coach too. And so we talked about the zero draft and what she was doing. And it was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, oh, yes, that makes so much sense. So now I'm like a huge advocate of the zero draft because it's like the pressure is off and you can just tell yourself the story and figure it out and play with things.
Mhm.
And then when you go down to write that first draft, it's like, okay, I feel
Yeah.
really like a solid understanding of this story. So it's
Yeah.
funny how things can't like, why have I never heard that word before? I don't know. Like I don't think I live in a cave, but
Yeah.
apparently you know what you know when you know it. So
Exactly. Yeah.
oh, yeah, it's not just me that has not heard of it. But then, of course, when I talk to people, I think when you said zero draft, I'm like, even Nicole knows about the zero draft. How come I didn't know that?
But again, like only recently, or I only heard that term to apply to something that I've been doing for a
Yeah.
long time. So it's not that I
Okay.
didn't know that the process existed. It's just, oh,
Yeah.
that's what people call it.
That it has name.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And I suppose in some ways I've done zero drafts in the sense that I would I do a lot of free writing about things at the beginning and maybe not the whole book, but like um about the characters or about the situation. So I think that's kind of zero draftish, like just let it free flow out and see what happens. And my handwriting's so terrible I can't read it anyways. It's just just a way to
Yeah.
process ideas, information. I can't really go
Yeah,
back and look at the notes, but it's just helps me figure it out. So I guess that's kind of a zero draft thing too. I don't know, but
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try this whole zero draft process. But I think it's great. Well, I'm extremely excited about your book coming out. And so, where can folks find it when the time comes in October?
I mean, anywhere where books are sold online. So, Amazon,
What?
Indigo, Barnes and Noble, all of those places, Kobo. So it'll be ebook and print book, print on demand. So
Yeah,
it will ship out from wherever you're ordering it from. But
yeah.
yeah,
It sounds like the kind of book that will benefit all kinds of folks, not like folks with ADHD for sure, but I think
Mhm.
everybody, right? Like it sounds like the strategies there are things we can all benefit from. I know I
Yeah.
can. So I'm looking forward to it. So I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast and having this chat with us. I'm excited about your book and all the work you're doing with your clients. It's incredible. Oh, I do have one more question because I always love to ask this question about um, to authors about marketing and promotion because
Mhm.
I think we all kind of like struggle with it. So is there anything that you're thinking of doing or thinking that might move the needle? Like how do you reach readers? I mean, there's, you know what I
I mean, I
mean?
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It is.
tough.
It's tricky. I do things like this, podcasts. I've been focusing on like guest posts and blog posts and
Yeah.
things like that on other people's publications,
Oh, good idea.
which I have found really valuable. That's actually how my co-author and I met in the first place, is
Oh,
that
yes.
she read an article that I had written when my first book came out about being a writer with ADHD, and she was looking for somebody to co-author with. And so, you never
Perfect.
know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
And, doing things like online summits, things like that, giving presentations,
Yeah.
the newsletters, the tried and true,
Yes.
um,
Yes. That
building up
still
the,
remains on kind of the top of the list, eh? That took me a
yeah,
long time to learn.
yeah,
Maybe a decade of not doing a newsletter regularly until I realized, oh, yeah, I should probably have a more regular newsletter.
yeah. But one thing I find surprising is that I've really stepped away from social media. Like, I don't
Yeah.
find that posting on Instagram really
Mhm.
matters or reaches the people that I want to reach. So
Yeah.
maybe it just
Those
means I'm bad
algorithms.
at social media, but
No, I don't think so. I think I've heard this again and again that like the algorithm changes fairly regularly as soon as people think
Mhm.
they know how it works. Like I've never been able to figure out the algorithm. So I mean, I don't post to anything. I just post what I want to post, but, and it just seems like there's no, change in viewership or you don't know who sees things. Like it just feels so out of your control. Whereas a newsletter is, you control how often it goes out and it goes to those people. Whether they open it or not is up to them. Absolutely. Right. I can't read every newsletter I get a lot. And
yeah,
I try to read them, but maybe I don't read everyone's, every week. But yeah, it's just such a challenge. And I think I'm trying to work through this whole idea of how to reach folks in an authentic way that is
Mhm.
not buy my book kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
also like your book is going to be so valuable to writers and you want to share that information with them. Like you want it to reach the right folks. So you know
yeah,
what I mean? Yeah.
yeah,
So all of those um, strategies I think are important. The ones where you're connecting with people and you're
yeah,
spreading the word and sharing your knowledge, which is very vast and you're such a lovely person. You know how to help folks figure out their own process. True, like not just here's mine, you must do this. It's like okay, let's figure this out together. What you need. So
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah.
Well, valuable information for all of us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh,
I mean, we've chatted a bunch before and I love our conversations. So
always.
this just feels like talking with a friend.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. And what I love is not only getting to chat with folks I know, like I know you and several other folks who have been on the podcast, but also have met um lots of authors that I hadn't known before. And it
Mhm.
does feel like you're making a nice connection, and it feels like often like I've known them forever and I'm like, I just met you, but
Yeah.
but you and I have known each other for a while. So it's
Yeah.
just always a pleasure to chat with you. And I always appreciate your insights and your opinions. And even from the Canadian Book Coaches group, your sharing your knowledge is like I always just respect the things that you have to say. And I always pause and think, okay, yeah, that makes total sense. That viewpoint, that way of looking at things. And so, I appreciate that too. So thank you for all of that as well. And we will see each other at a Book Coaches Canada meeting. And in the
Absolutely.
meantime, everyone should go out and get your book, because by the time this podcast is out, your book will be out and they can go out and grab it for themselves.
Yes.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're welcome. Are you interested in pursuing your book writing dreams? Join me for my next group book coaching session starting on October 19th and running for 8 weeks. This session is ideal for individuals who have an idea for a novel or a memoir and need guidance to get started, or who have a draft and need a solid plan for revision. You will receive weekly group book coaching sessions and individual feedback every week on your submissions, weekly goal setting, and a supportive community of women writing. Hop on over to lisakovala.bookcoach.com for more information, or email me at lisabookcoach@gmail.com to register. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing. Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.